Read? Do you need these?
Good morning. We'll call to order the December 8th, 2009 meeting of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County. At this point, I'd like to call up Reverend Jack Deal with Our Savior Lutheran Church to give the invocation, and that'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Wesley Davis. Please rise. Welcome.
Thank you. And let us pray. O God and Father of us all, as we gather to be about the business of this little corner of your creation, we pause first to give you thanks for the beauty and wonder and joy of this season, for the blessing of family and friends, and in the heart of it all, for your light, which the darkness cannot put out. Your light which the Jews celebrate at Hanukkah, your light which Christians celebrate and see in the birth of the Christ child. As we ask your blessing on this meeting, may that light illuminate the conversation, the deliberations, and the actions taken here today, so that your good creation be cared for and your people be best served. And all God's people said, Amen.
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 Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Takes us to item 4, addition, deletions to the agenda. There's been a request from the county administrator to pull item 8E from consent. That's item 8E. And I would like to move item 7D from informational items to the consent as item 8H. So we have a removal of 8E and moving 7D to consent at 8H. Is there any other?
Mr. Chairman, if the board would allow it, I'd like to add a discussion under my matters 13A of the Fellsmere Code Enforcement hydrant decision, and I'd like authority to appeal, so I'd like to discuss that under my matters.
I'll move that.
Okay, so we have to add an item 13A under county attorney matters. Okay. Is there any other additions, deletions to the agenda? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Move approval. Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Flesher, a second from Commissioner Davis. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries 4-0. Also, like, just for the record, to state that Commissioner Slaughter will not be at this meeting. He is still attending to a very serious family medical matter. So he has our best wishes, but he will not be here at today's meeting. That brings us to item 5A, which is a presentation of the 2009 Cooperator of the Year proclamation to Brian and Valerie Quant of White Rabbit Acres. And this will be presented by Chairman David Gunter with the Indian River Soil and Water Conservation District. David, did you want to go now or do you want to wait?
Well, I don't see them here. I thought I saw them walking up when I came in. Why don't you just wait?
Okay, we'll skip over and go to the next one. Thank you. We'll then proceed to item 5B. It's a presentation of proclamation designating December 18th, 2009 as Santa's for Seniors Day. And we have Jennifer Jones with the Indian River County United Way here to accept the proclamation, and Commissioner Wheeler will be presenting it. Welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for having me here today to talk about Santa's for Seniors. We started the program, I founded it about 3 years ago. I just have a love and a passion for the senior population. This time of the year is very important to seniors. They find themselves to be alone. They find themselves struggling between paying for groceries, their medication, or the utility bills. And it is so hard for them to just be able to pay for your basic needs. And some of the things that they ask for our Santa's for Seniors drive is simple things, shampoos, hand creams, little slippers and socks, or a wrap to curl up with in front of their television. And I partner with Jenna O'Connor at the Senior Resource Association, and we try and reach out to those the most neediest seniors here in our community. And so I thank you so much for letting me talk about it. It is a true passion, and our partnership has been very valuable. And our first year, we were able to serve 75 people. Our second year, we were able to serve 250 people.
Wow.
And this year, I have to thank my event sponsor, the Florida Eye Institute, for providing me with some marketing dollars so that we can really make this drive a lot bigger and be able to serve even more. We have challenged the community to fill a Senior Resource Association bus. Our first stop was last Saturday at the Florida Eye Institute, where I think we filled the bus about 1/3 of the way full in all that rain. And this Saturday, we will then be at outside Macy's at the mall. So we hope we're going to be able to fill the rest of it up this year.
Great. Jennifer, what time will it be at Macy's? Will it be all day or just a certain time?
The bus will actually be at Macy's from 11 to 5, but you can also drop off gifts if you're not able to get there at the RBC Banks, Bank of America, at the United Way building, or even at the Senior Resource Association.
Great. Now, you have a special guest, I think, but let me have Commissioner Wheeler go ahead and read the proclamation,
Yes.
and then we can hopefully welcome your special guest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I can tell you that every year I get more and more interested in the seniors' welfare. So, but anyway, I'd like to read this proclamation, and then I'll present it to you. And on the proclamation, I see we've got from 11 to 4 at Macy's. Is that accurate, or is it 11 to 5?
11 to 4, I guess.
11 to 4,
yes.
okay.
I'm here all day at our store, so yes.
Okay, great. And this is designating December 18th as Santa's Seniors Day. Whereas the senior community of Indian River County is a wonderful source of knowledge and experience from which we can all learn and improve ourselves. And as beneficiaries of their lifelong work, we are indebted to our respected elders. And whereas the United Way of Indian River County and the Senior Resources Association are continuing their tradition of protecting and caring for our cherished residents and their third annual Santa's for Senior program in order to provide a touch of holiday warmth to those of our elders who have been frostbitten by economic challenges, physical hardships, and loneliness. And whereas with the past year having statistically been exceptionally difficult for our seniors, local businesses, and individuals are being challenged to make this year's Santa's for Seniors more successful than ever by donating the type of small token gifts that can soften the skin, engage the mind, or warm the body. And whereas citizens of our community are encouraged to participate in Santa's for Seniors by dropping off your gifts in the lobby at any Indian River County RBC Bank or Bank of America branch between November 30th and December 18th, or taking the Fill the Bus Challenge and placing your gifts in the Senior Resources Association bus that will be parked at which you mentioned, the Florida Institute, and that was on the 5th, and also on the 12th it'll be parked from 11 to 4 at Macy's parking lot at the mall. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners that December 18, 2009 be officially declared as Santa's for Seniors Day, and we urge all the citizens of Indian River County to recognize the importance of the day by participating with the United Way and honoring this day and always the elders of our community. It's adopted and signed by the County Commissioners today, and we appreciate the work you do with that also. So I'd like to give this, would you like to say something first?
Yes, I'm Jenna O'Connor, the Program Director with the Senior Resource Association, and on behalf of the Senior Resource Association, I'd really like to deeply thank the Commissioners for recognizing this need in our community, and also thank United Way for all their efforts to really bring the holidays home to those who otherwise wouldn't experience it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Oh, Merry
We get to see Santa.
It's Santa! Woo!
Thank you.
What a wonderful sight and what a wonderful way to hear about treating the seniors. It's wonderful to be here. And last week I was in Vero Beach at their meeting, and it's a wonderful thing that they're doing. It's you can't tell you enough how it is to treat these seniors. These seniors, especially during the holiday season, kind of get down on their luck and get depressed. And I think if we can just do a little bit to help them and put a smile on their face, it's well worth it. Thank you for inviting me today.
Santa,
I appreciate it.
You're a senior too, Santa.
Yes, sir. It's good to see that you're not sleeping like you did in the 5th grade.
You tell him, Santa, you tell him.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Santa never forgets.
I'm a naughty boy person.
He's always watching.
I didn't. Santa, for the record, you want to give your address, please?
North Pole.
1,000 North Pole.
1,000 North Pole.
Merry
Christmas, Santa. Thank you. Okay, I think Brian and Valerie are here now, so with that, we'll bring David Gunner back up as chairman of the Indian River Soil and Water Conservation District, and he is making a presentation of the 2009 Cooperator of the Year. So, David, welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing us to make this presentation here at the Commission meeting. Brian and Val?
David, is that microphone on? Is there a little green light at the base of the...
Oh, yeah, it's on.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, Brian and Valerie Quant. Thank you. From White Rabbit Acres. Let me read the proclamation. Brian and Valerie Quant of White Rabbit Acres for serving as an example of leadership as a steward of the land is proclaimed Cooperator of the Year for 2009. Whereas the Quant family has been a cooperator since 2001. Whereas the Quants have implemented and followed a conservation plan including several practices resulting in water savings and improvement of soil quality. Whereas White Rabbit Acres has successfully installed water control structures to effectively manage the water table. They have installed a micro-irrigation system to irrigate vegetable crops and conserve water. All practices have been applied and maintained according to the conservation plan and operation and maintenance plan provided with practice designs. Whereas White Rabbit Acres has applied waste utilization and effective use of cover crops resulting in improved soil quality. Whereas White Rabbit Acres, being a certified organic farm, have applied a nutrient and pest management program, reducing the risk of potentially harmful chemicals and pesticides. Whereas the Quants started with primarily old citrus grove, the conversion to a diverse fruit tree, vegetable producing, along with a menagerie of animals including goats, sheep, cows, and poultry, White Rabbit Acres has evolved into a sustainable system that provides a viable model in the community. They have participated in both NRC and Soil and Water Conservation District cost share programs. Whereas the Quants have been open and vocal in their commitment to produce healthy food for local consumption, they have invited groups to participate in community-supported agricultural projects on their land. They have converted vehicles to run using waste vegetable oil in place of diesel. They have held workshops on best farm practices to educate the community. They have supported 4-H programs and have participated in McKee's youth programs. Now, therefore, I, David Gunner, Chairman of the Indian River Soil and Water Conservation District, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby extend to Brian and Valerie Quant of White Rabbit Acres this proclamation for thanks and appreciation for the example of their leadership and achievement in conservation and proclaim them Cooperators of the Year for 2009.
Would you all like to say something? Please step up and give an unabashed plug for your farm.
Thank you very much. We do the best we can.
How's Danielle doing?
Thank you.
Dave? Yep. Good to see you.
I just want to say I have friends that participate in their co-op out there, and every weekend they go out and pull some weeds and work the land and work the farm. And then they come by and they have a giant bag full of fresh veggies and greens, and you throw that in a salad. It's just absolutely fantastic. So if you ever want some good fresh lettuce and fruits and stuff, head out to White Rabbit. It's a great operation out there. Okay, we have no minutes to approve. That takes us to item 7, informational items. We did move item 7D from that. And then that takes us to the consent agenda. I would like to pull the 8H item that we just moved from information. Are there any other moves from consent, Commissioners?
Move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Davis, seconded by Commissioner Flesher. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign, passes unanimously. Item originally 7D, now moved to 8H, is dealing with the county minimum bid guidelines and things like that. I just wanted to have staff. I don't have any problem with what staff is proposing here due to inflation and various things like that. Our limits were pretty low in creating a preponderance of paperwork and unnecessary staff time. So I don't have any objections to what you're proposing here, but I just thought in the interest of open government and letting the public know what we're doing here, that just a quick summary of what staff is proposing would be appropriate. So, Tom, would you take the lead on that, please?
Yes, Tom Frame, General Services Director. The first item that we're asking to change is the bid minimum. Currently, we have a bid minimum of $5,000, and what that means, if we go out and purchase any or have an intent to purchase anything of $5,000 or more, we're obligated to put out a formal sealed bid. That's a cumbersome process when you're looking at a $5,000 item in today's market, where $5,000 doesn't buy much. We did a survey of a significant number of different counties in the state of Florida, and of course, we're by large the smallest of the bid amounts at $5,000. Almost every other community that we bid or surveyed was set at $25,000. Some are much higher than that. So what we're proposing is to move that up from $5,000 to $25,000. The second thing that we have in there is the criteria that we're now putting forth on how we would attempt to purchase items that are below $25,000, where we're making sure that we get the appropriate types of written quotes so that we maintain a competitive process throughout the process of buying these type of items. The third and final item is a change in our blanket orders. We're increasing the size of a blanket order. We're moving that up in size, and also the individual item. The current one that we work under presently has it where an individual item on a blanket order can't exceed $200, and that was originally established back when $200 was the size of capital purchases based on the Florida statute. That's now at $1,000, so we're increasing that to $1,000, and we're increasing our blanket up to let me look here up, $25,000. So those are the things. It will help expedite our process. It'll take a little bit of the workload that we're having to do now for what are minor items that are taking a lot of effort. So we thought we'd go ahead. We're already rewriting the entire purchasing manual, but these three items were critical in allowing us to go ahead and provide some relief to the departments in the type of paperwork. So we brought these items forward, and we'll bring the entire purchasing manual shortly back for the board's review. Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any comments for staff? Is there anyone from the public that would wish to comment on this? This is increasing our bid minimums. Okay, hearing none, I cannot make a motion, but I'd like to see that move forward. Thank you, Commissioner Flesher. I'll second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Close like sign. Carries unanimously. Thank you, Tom, very much. Appreciate it. Constitutional officers, we have nothing there. Public items, there are no public hearings today. That moves us to 10B, public discussion items. Request to speak from William Wells regarding setbacks. Mr. Wells, welcome, and please your name and address for the record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm I'm William Wells, 8800 44th Avenue. And as you know, I've been here before. I'm not here to criticize you. I'm here to inform you. There's an honorable gentleman all across here. I'm not saying that anybody's not honorable up there. I'm saying I'm here to inform. This will be my last stance in front of you over this matter. I come to these meetings over the sand and over the zoning changes because I'm not going to stand back and criticize government and sit in the chair and watch television. I'm going to be involved. If I'm going to criticize or say something, I'm going to speak my opinion and be involved with the county. And so this matter here is personal. The rest of the matters are other. I'll be back for a couple of other ones. But this, I want to get this by me, turn this over, and move on. I had some changes since we last met with Joe. I gave him a couple yesterday, but I don't know if...
Mr. Wells, I believe last week you distributed a fairly large packet, and all the commissioners received that?
Yes.
Did everybody get that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But I've got an addition to it.
Okay, you want to just hand it out, we'll pass it down, or?
You have yours, Joe?
No. I'll pass it down for you if you want. Thank you. You could just pass it down.
Oh, you marked them up, too.
I marked them up, too.
I got you.
You got everything in there?
Mr. Wells,
Make sure you keep a copy for yourself, Mr. Wells.
if you want to put this on the overhead, we can accommodate that, too.
I don't know. I stapled something wrong here somewhere. Hold on. Here we go.
No, it's right.
You got two, Joe?
No.
Let me take that back, President.
Sure. That's what I had. I gave you back the original. Okay. That's what I needed.
So that's a set.
Yep.
Okay.
Is there 4 or just 2?
Just two.
Two.
One with the picture and one with definitions, right? Okay, so I have a set, so these can go to Commissioner Wheeler.
There should be 4 pages and 2.
Okay, and we all have a set. If you want to give me the one with the picture on it, and I'll make sure the clerk gets a copy for the record.
All right.
Okay. Now, do you have one left for yourself to use?
Guys, sure. I think everybody got it.
If you don't, I've had the opportunity to review. Do you want this one for
Pass
demonstration?
that to the clerk, please.
I'll start with that. Interpretation of, let's see. See how we do this. How do we...
Face up, Mr. Wells. Face up. Flip it. There you go.
Joe has got me numerous meetings with staff. He's spent a lot of time trying to resolve this, and me and staff don't seem to see eye to eye. We're talking about setbacks at 8810. The last time I was here, I had said that Tom and Gail Sasso had lot 3 on 44th Avenue, and Tom said his pool was 50 feet from the high water line. Gail says the individual lots, they're not gated, not a gated community. It's not a subdivision, so they're not platted. Definition of platted is a subdivision. So yesterday morning I went on the county computer, and my wife got all the pictures there in green, and then there's a little box up top that says platted. She punched an X in there, and when it comes out, you see platted. It's subdivision. All the subdivisions. Why across the street? That's another subdivision, and all those lots on the water are in that subdivision. But like it said in 1980 survey, it was brought to St. John's meeting by Andy. There's a platted portion of this tract, and there's individual lots and it's shown, if you look from lot 1 to 11, and there's other lots down here, they're all unplatted too. I didn't make this document, the county taxpaying surveyor made this package in the computer. I just happened to stumble on that little box that's platted, put an X in it, and what happens is the green goes away and the blue marks where I put T's, that's all platted. So the setback on 44th Avenue for lots 1 to 11 is 50 feet. Because it's an unplatted. Across the street, the setbacks on those waterfront lots, that's a platted subdivision, it's 25 feet. But it was platted before 1991. And then in the back of that, there's a definition of, up on the top, it describes platted and unplatted setbacks. For all residential. Now, those lots are R6. None of those lots, except for the last 3, are an acre. R6 is 6 units per acre. From lot 1 is an empty lot. Lot 2 is a single-family dwelling. Lot 3 is a single-family dwelling. Lot 4 is a single-family dwelling. Lot 5 is a single-family dwelling. Lot 6 is a single-family dwelling. None of them have sheds, outbuildings. Lot 7 is a single-family dwelling. It has a garage that I can't find a permit for, disattached, in the front yard. It has a wall 7.5 feet high in the front. It's not allowed except on the exception code. That's if it matches what's in the neighborhood for extra safety, like 512 I mentioned once before. Those certain lots along that ditch in that waterway for safety for kids and stuff can be 6 feet high. But there's no walls on that section area between 1 and 11. And there's a fence down on the other end, 8940, that had to stop 25 feet from the seawall.
Mr. Wells, if I could just interrupt you for just a minute, and let's kind of try to cover one step at a time and walk through this. So your contention is the lots on the river here, 1 through 11, are not platted, and therefore the setback from mean high water should be 50 feet instead of 25 feet. Is that your position?
That's correct.
Okay. Bob, could you or Roland come down here and let's address this step by step, please, and confirm either these are platted or not platted?
Good morning. I'm Bob Keating. I'm County Community Development Director. These lots are platted. They're part of the Naranja Track Shell Mound subdivision, and it's a replat of that. And Roland will put a copy of the plat up there. Okay. And I think if you look in your packet, you probably have various surveys, and the legal description on those will show you that it is a replat of the Naranja Track Shell Mound Beach subdivision.
Do we know the date when it was replatted, Bob?
1980.
Okay, so it was replatted in 1980. So from the county's point of view, it is the lots 1 through 11 are platted lots, and therefore the setback from the mean high water line would be the 25-foot and not the 50-foot. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Wells, it appears it is a platted lot, and so the setback would be 25 feet. And I see in the backup, and I assume you're relating this to the pool house on the adjacent lot. And according to the staff report, that pool house is 26.2 feet from mean high water. So it would seem to meet the setback 25 feet from mean high water for a platted lot.
Okay, now if you read that survey, it's got plat on it, platted on it, and it also has got individuals. It reads on that piece of paper he just showed you. It reads single-family lots on the bottom. We got platted and unplatted. There were single-family lots on that piece of paper he just gave you. He describes those as don't say unplatted, they're not part of the plat, it's both. This was one piece. When this was broke up, these were all broken out as single-family lots. And it says that on that piece of paper. It says, if you read it carefully, you'll see it says single-family lots. But we'll move on.
Then I believe your next point, Mr. Wells, was the wall running along the side property lot. Is that correct?
I'm going to get to that. I never presented the package that I presented. I'm going to skip page 1A. That's just St. John's. He was in violation. I'm going to skip 1B. I'm going to skip 1C. I'm going to go to 2. I'm going to skip. We get this. I'm going to go to 2C. When Andy represented the county with St. John's, he brought 2 surveys. He brought the 1980 survey, and he brought this 2002 survey from Talbot. He did not bring the 2000 survey that his wall, fence, and house is on when he built this house. And this survey shows 23 feet, unknown, but does not show the distance from the pin to the high water mark. On the other side it shows 30. Well, I want to show you a picture that's incorrect. The 30 didn't get there until he filled rock out on the north side. That which is gone, and it's back to about 21, 22, which I showed Joe when he was at my home. For this document, like I said, in 2007, the survey is very questionable.
Before we leave that, I mean, just like you asked the last time, okay, if he's contending that, then Bob Wire, I'm assuming
Well, I'm going to show you why I say that. I'm going to just get through this. This is, if you read this here, you'll read about how it's separated, and you got single-family lots, and you have a plat. Platted is a subdivision. I'm not in a subdivision, I'm in a single-family land. I own my own lot. It's separate, it's not in a subdivision, it's not in a gated community.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr.
Did Bob explain how single-family lots tie in with platted subdivisions?
Yes, and I'd ask Will to chime in if he thinks it's necessary. Actually, the purpose of platting or subdividing is to actually create lots. They can be single-family lots, they can be multifamily lots, they can be tracts, they can be other types of subdivided land. But that is the whole purpose of a subdivision plat, to create lots and tracts.
And usually the whole purpose of platting is for ease of conveyance of the land. So typically if the deed says Lot 1 or Lot 10 of Naranja Shell Mound subdivision, that's a platted lot. If the description in the deed of conveyance is by distances and bearings, then that's more typical of an unplatted lot. But once a lot's platted, you've already monumented the corners, the distances, and you convey by reference to that lot number rather than a meets and bounds description.
Thank you. Commissioner Fletcher, did you have something at this point?
No, Will, thank you. I wanted Will to clarify it. He's already done that.
This is the survey for the home in 2000, and it shows 9.6 feet on the north side. I mean, you go out to, what are we doing on the ocean? Why are anything on that west side makes a big, why are we putting sand on the beach? Because everything on the west side and the northeasters take out the beach. I showed Joe it because the rocks have moved out again, the stones, where Wilmer, they took out the middle. Now the land is coming out again, which I reported to St. John's again. And now she's trying to say that it's going to the DEP. The DEP says it's St. John's. My land on the south boundary is taken out. On the last survey, it was 35 feet. And now I don't think I got 12 feet. This is the one where the house is being built. When my house was built and finished, surveyor came back out, square footage of the driveway, square footage of the house, square footage of the pool deck, and then turned the survey in again to the county. Tax people come out and they remeasure it and they do it all over again. I sat down with Mr. Atkins and there is no final survey for 8810 for 2002 when the final okay was given in June. Okay. This one is the first time I've seen this one here was with Andy was sitting in my home with the gentleman from Jacksonville from St. John's. And I had said that this survey doesn't show the distance it shows it from the middle of this, but doesn't show the distance on the north side, which the first survey that was done for the house showed 9.6. Doesn't show the steps. It says the building is behind the control line. The control line is the line on the ocean, the river. It's not used on regular land. It's only used on waterfront property, a big lake where there's water there. They have a control line. At the control line, they put a rebarb and cap and a cap. And then from that control line. This here shows the building behind the control line, but later on in the package I'll show you that it's not. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
This is the sign off for the pool house.
Mr. Wells, just a real quick minute, please.
I know, Mr. Wells, you've been probably in front of this commission for maybe 3 years.
Oh, I think it's longer than that.
Okay.
I think so, too.
Just to refresh my memory and other people's memory, what is your primary objective? Can you, and then go back and we'll go through all this. I just want to know exactly.
My primary objective is to have things done legally, have things done the way they're supposed to be done.
Okay, so the result is you want things removed? Yeah, are we talking about the garage, the pool, the wall, et cetera?
I want to obey the law, whatever the law states, whether it's county, St. John's, or DEP.
Okay, but be specific on which laws. What do you want those laws to apply to?
I'm going to do.
But the only reason I'm asking up front is so I can follow this more clearly as you go through
I'm going to tell you codes. I'm going to tell you the way I read the codes. Now, I sat with Joe, Mr. Keating, and Roland, and we were talking about fences and heights of fences. And in Roland, I said that fences cannot be more than 4 feet in the front yard. And Roland looked in the book, and he says, you know, you're right. And then Mr. Keating jumped in and handed me a piece of paper and said, 35 feet. Yeah, he was right, too. 35 feet is the wall on the house, not the fence.
So
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, that's all right.
That won't happen again.
I just want to know that the primary objective.
You want put everything to code.
Okay, but what would bring it to code in your estimation? I'm trying to.
Pool houses, take it down. Put the land back to where it was.
Okay, that's what your objective is.
The garage, take it down.
The wall, take it down.
Take it down to 4 feet, but to code.
Okay. Okay, I just want to know where you were going. Thank you.
This is Bob Keating's sign off at the pool house. It shows 51 point some feet. And Mr. Keating says that he doesn't have to sign off when changes are made. Any change to this document or to that building, it says in that paperwork I give you, I showed to Joe, that he has to re-review it and re-sign off on it. You cannot move this building without that stamp, and without that name on it. Now, this one here is the one that I got that Kenny went out. Kenny, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'll call him Kenny O. He worked opposite Andy in the county, no longer works for the county. He signed off and then scratched his name out. This here is a not legal document, the big bill. Mr. Keating has to sign off on it. When they moved that building from 50 to 25, this document here shows you that he has to re-review it, re-stamp it, re-sign off on it. Says he don't, but the county rule says he does. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little out of hand here. All I'm trying to do is state the facts. Don't mean I can't be wrong on something.
Okay, Mr. Wells, if you could just hold up for a minute. Bob, he's looks like two site plans here. The original one has the pool area kind of up adjacent to the porch of the two-story residence, and then the second one shows the pool area moved eastward closer to the water. Mr. Wells' contention, I guess, is that the second drawing, which has the pool house and pool area closer to the water, was not formally approved as compared to the one that you did sign that shows it more closer to the house. Can you clarify that for us, please?
Yes, we approved that structure as a guest house. And a guest house is an administrative permit use in the RM6 zoning district, and that's the applicable zoning district here. So I have the authority to sign off on the administrative permit use for the guest house, which I do. If there are subsequent modifications, whether it's in the field or prior to building it, moving the setbacks, that's a minor issue that my staff can sign off on. They just look at the setbacks. But what I have to sign off on is the use, and that was done once. We don't have to do a separate administrative approval if the building shifts location.
Okay, and then on that second site plan that we're looking at here, where it is closer to the lagoon, that is where staff has still verified that at its closest point, it's 26.2 feet from the established mean high water line. Is that correct?
Yes, we have surveys showing that it meets the minimum of 25-foot lagoon setback, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Wells.
Okay, Joe, you have the paper there. It says administrative approval. Does it explain to you if any changes, it reads any changes to that administrative approval by Mr.
Which
Keating?
I believe is consistent with what
No, it's any changes.
Mr. Keating is stating, that he has the administrative approval capacity.
Oh, no, it says the direct. You want me to take a couple of seconds out and dig it out?
I believe Mr. Keating had explained that at an earlier meeting, that he had the capacity to sign off on that
That's just a disagreement.
update.
That'll be handled in a different way. I got my point in. Okay, after the 2000 meeting with you gentlemen and stuff, we had a new certified survey. And it put down on the steps, which are formed, with some sand underneath it, but it's formed of poured concrete attached to the building, with tile, pavers cemented down, not sanded down, cemented down. And it goes over the control line. So that's part of the building. After the fact permit was issued with the same permit number. When you add on to a building, like I said before, it should be a separate permit, but it's not. And again, survey does not show the distance on the water side, either side.
Mr. Wells? Jim?
Yes.
I believe Bud Akins explained that within the 10-foot threshold that there can be an extension of the steps for a 6-foot threshold so long as it's within 4 feet of the property boundary, and that he also had permitted the substrate to be concrete, and he said that the steps were in compliance.
I did not.
Roland's putting an excerpt from the land development regulations up that shows that outside stairways are allowed to project up to 4 feet into any required yard area. And the yard area is the setback area.
It is not it's not a stairway. I'm going to show you a picture of it.
It's not. We consider stairs stairways.
Well,
so it's allowable within 4 feet of the property boundary?
Within the setback. The stairs on the north side, for example, there's a required 10-foot setback. So the stairs can be as close as 6 feet from the property line. They can project 4 feet into the required 10-foot setback.
All I'm saying is it's part of the setback from the high water mark. That's what I'm saying. I'm not objecting what he just said. I'm saying those stairs are part of the building. The high water mark of those stairs out. And by their own survey, those stairs are 26 feet and a half feet from the building. By their survey, not counting the steps, you only have a foot and a half, 4 inches.
So what you're saying then is that
When you break the stairs down, then now by their, I disagree with their survey, but even by their survey, the stairs don't meet the setbacks.
But what he just said is we allow stairs to go into the setback, so the setbacks are there, but they're allowed to encroach basically on a setback.
Not on the high water mark. That's
Bob?
what I'm saying.
We treat the setback from water bodies the way we do yard setbacks.
A setback is a setback, and it's treated as a setback.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, here we go. We got 2005. We have a fence that was damaged by the hurricane and repaired within a couple of weeks. But I guess in 2004. So we have a permit for to redo the fence from the hurricane and do it in concrete. It was the wall stops in the middle of the property and then there's fence. Now this is the survey for the 2005 permit showing 9.6 feet from the high water mark. This is not my. This is not mine. This is theirs. This is the correct. By the pictures, this is. It didn't have 9 feet, 9.5 feet, because he put his tractor on the beach and did a little grading, and that's why he had to put the rock, because he was losing it fast. It was going south.
Mr. Wells, just one point. Look at all these different surveys. Every one of them has the mean high water line in a different location. You know, this is kind of a dynamic, moving line. It's not a hard, fixed line. And I think, you know, from the county's point of view, at the time of construction or the time of the permit, we measure it and approve it from then. But, you know, I don't think we can keep going back out there every 6 months just because a storm came through and might have moved a little sand or some erosion and keep.
We're going to get into this right now.
Okay, but just.
I understand.
Looking from the original permit and the map, it all met all the setbacks at that time, and that's when we approved it, and that's when it went in. And, you know, we just can't keep going back and...
Okay, now we're getting into the heart of it, then it'll be over with it.
Okay, thank you.
This is the picture of the fence being put up prior to final inspection in 2002. If you look at the fence, where it stops, you see the coquina rock goes right up to the end of the fence. This is before the fence was added onto. I don't even want to get into this. I just want you to be aware.
Before we leave it, all right, that we've established that you disagree with staff on the pool in the setback.
Because if you,
But not because, but just so I'm understanding this correctly.
the two things I don't agree with. One is the 50 feet, and the other one is the 25 feet. I don't agree with the survey.
All right, that's fine. And Bob, you're saying the pool's in the right spot?
Yes, the pool house slash guest house.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the steps, you're saying that you disagree because that's going into the mean high water marks setbacks and staff?
The county description, if it's a 25-foot setback, you're allowed, the county description, you're allowed a dock, you're allowed a walkway above ground, which is, you're allowed a little boat ramp like I got next to my dock, and the rest of that has to stay natural. Without permits. Now, I have a seawall that goes 5 feet and I think 8 feet just past the control line.
Okay, I follow that. And Bob, you're saying that it is, with it being a setback, regardless of the setback, you allow anybody and everybody, if they want steps to go or to intrude.
Yes, actually, that's an interpretation, just as allowing the fence or wall in the shoreline buffer is an interpretation, because a fence or wall is allowed in other required setback areas.
Okay.
We also allow fence and walls in conservation, where we have a conservation easement.
Mm-hmm.
that is usually an allowable encroachment in there. A lot of times you see fences are necessary to protect conservation areas.
And so that kind of goes into the second part of it. Then you're saying that there shouldn't be a fence on the setback.
8940. When you had the drug house there, they put a fence up.
Okay.
They pulled the permit, they put a fence up to try and keep them separated. And I don't know what they're going to say now, but back then, she wanted to go all the way. She wanted to block that back end because of the people who were living in those houses. Linda wanted to block that. And her statements then were she wasn't allowed to take that fence to the wall, seawall. She had to stop 25 feet. There's another one in Roseland that was just redone, a house redone, and it meets the setbacks from the rear, it's 25, from the front, it's 25. It's built that way. There's other fences, older fences, along Roseland. But I'm believing that those fences are not permitted, or they're not legal.
Have we stopped anybody from building a fence in a setback?
I don't know. Maybe Roland does.
Well, I think the other part of the formula is, again, this buffer is, if you read the full section, it has to do with protection of shoreline vegetation, native vegetation. If you have a lot that's essentially void of native vegetation, then, we look at the intent and the issue. Okay. If there's a fence or a wall that's going to go through mangroves or anything like that, yeah, that's a problem. But if you have pretty much a area that is void of native vegetation, that kind of, we look at that and conclude that it's not in conflict with the buffer intent.
And so it's not atypical for us to have a fence going all the way to the mean high water. Okay.
Commissioner Fletcher?
Mr. Wells, are you referring to the residence north of the Philbin residence, or the former Philbin residence, which was 8940?
No, south.
You're talking then towards the yellow dwelling?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
To the south?
Yes. This is a picture. Let's see how they're going to do this. Of the pool house being built.
Please, it goes.
And the wall being built. Now, the county says the wall is 355 feet. They said it's 360 on my side. I agree, within a foot, I agree with the right side. But if you take the picture of the wall in the 80 line, 80s line, where they put the high water mark, the wall is probably 4 or 5 feet past that. So 26 feet would be the wall, but it's past the high water mark, which I'll show you later on. So it's probably about 30. So it's probably 374. But I can't get those numbers, so I don't know why if somebody builds a wall or a fence next to your property and you can't be told how long it is, how many square feet it is. But how do you figure the square feet if you don't know how long it is?
Mr. Keating?
Okay, move on.
Well, let's answer that.
Yeah, let's,
Actually, the length of the wall doesn't really make any difference to staff. As long as in this case, since it's a 6-foot wall, it can't be within the front yard setback. Otherwise, it couldn't be higher than 4 feet. So it is back the 25 feet from the front property line. And then regardless of the length, what we're looking at on the back end is that it doesn't go, in essence, beyond his property, so it doesn't go beyond mean high water. The length is really irrelevant. And there's no regulatory reason for us to look at.
And it can be 6 feet tall there because it's in the back?
Yes, it can be 6 feet tall any place except the front yard setback.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Fletcher.
And again, while we're referring to the height of the wall, you're saying the average height of the wall. I've been on Mr. Wells' side of the wall, and I emphasize on his property line. The fence averages about 5.5, grades to 5.8, and then it slopes downward on his side of the property. There is the concrete wall stands over 7 foot tall on his side of the property, up to the front of the property line. Could you explain why we refer to the average height?
Yes, and actually we measure a wall or fence from the finished grade of the lot that the wall and fence is being put on.
So you're measuring it from the north versus south?
Yes. Now, we don't allow someone to berm up and then put a 6-foot fence on top of the berm. But if someone puts a foot or two of fill on his property and the finished grade of the property is higher than his neighbor, then he gets the advantage of that higher height.
You measure it from the concrete of the driveway, you get the same results. Now, it states in the rules and regulations, it states that front yard setback is 25 feet, but it can be 35 feet, it can be 40 feet, it can be 100 feet.
Well, we have minimum.
It all depends. I don't have that with me. It all depends I got part of that with me, where it all depends where the house is. On a single-family residence, a house determines where the front yard is.
No, Bob, I thought our land development regulations determine the setbacks, not where the...
No, the setback is a minimum of 25 feet, yes.
Okay.
You can't put that house any closer than 25 feet.
Right.
But you can put it at 100 feet.
Sure.
Okay, now your front yard, which it says right there in the paper I gave you, your front yard is from the house forward to the right-of-way.
Right.
That's your front yard. You cannot put a 6-foot front yard, a fence in a front yard. You can't put any building in a front yard. It has to be any structures have to be in the rear yard, side yard, but cannot be in the front yard.
And you're saying that what's in the front yard here that shouldn't be?
You got a wall of 4 feet. The wall should be in the front yard.
Should be 4 feet.
4 feet.
And it's
it
not.
Shouldn't be a garage just attached. Now you can have a carport and garage in the front yard if it's attached to the house with one wall.
Bob, can you clarify?
Mr. Wells is making an interpretation different from us. What he's saying is that despite there being a 25-foot front yard setback in the RM6 district, if the house is set back 35 feet, you can't have any structures in that 10 feet between the 25 and the 35. Staff's position is if you take all the setbacks on the lot, front, rear, and the sides, what you have within that polygon that you create using those setbacks is the buildable area. Within that buildable area, any structure can be up to 35 feet, whether it's in front of the house or not. Our position is you've got a net buildable area there, and our requirement is 35 feet. I think the difference is Mr. Wells is looking at yard area, staff is looking at required yard area. Okay. Our position is The required yard area is 25 feet from the property line going in the yard for an RM6 lot. And we both agree in this case that someone cannot build a structure like a detached garage in that 25 feet.
Right.
He cannot put up a 6-foot wall in there. In this case, there is neither of those on this lot. But the detached garage projects in front of the house, but behind the setback, and the wall starts, the 6-foot wall starts at the setback line.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Wheeler?
Yeah, just a follow-up question on what Bob just said. Bob, the 25 feet setback where you've got to be at 4 foot or under and no structures, what was the intent or the objective of having that cover that 25 feet and not going back farther?
Actually, the reason that we and many other local governments have lower front yard fence heights is to keep from creating a canyon effect. That's where, close to the traveled portion of a roadway, you just have high structures on both sides. When you push that wall or fence back the setback distance, then you don't have the canyon effect. You still have quite a bit of land area before the taller structure.
Thank you.
Yeah, the code states you cannot have a fence over 4 feet in the front yard. It doesn't mention, and you can't have it within 25 feet of the setback. But the front yard, it tells you in the paperwork that the front yard is from the right of way to the home. It tells you that. Is that correct, Joe? Does it say that? Does it say anything about 25 feet where the front yard is? It says from the right of way to the home is the front yard. And that's what Roland found in our meeting. And that's when Bob jumped in and said you can have a 35-foot. But then when I read that thing, you can have a 35-foot wall on a house. But then you have to, after 25 feet, you have to add, for every 2 feet of the height of the house, you have to add a foot to the setback.
I'd just like Bob to define the difference between the front yard and the 25-foot setback and the 4-foot fence.
And it's defined in the book. I had made a copy of it. It reads it that way in the book. And I have to go back to the library and I'll dig it out and I'll give it to Joe.
I'd like Bob to respond.
Yes, please, Bob.
All right.
First, I'll read the part of our code that deals with height of fences and walls. And it's for front yards, fences not exceeding 48 inches in height may be erected in the front yard of any lot. Now, again, what you also have to look at is the RM6 setback requirements, and the RM6 setback requirements indicate that there is a front yard setback of 25 feet.
I agree with that.
And it's minimum yard area. And the yard area is the minimum to where you can put structures. Now, when you look at the definition of yard, it's, in essence, the minimum horizontal distance between the structure and the street right-of-way. Now, again,
and I see the subtle difference, and really what we have here is we have multifamily zoning where individuals are building houses on acre-and-a-quarter lots, and therefore, because of the zoning that is under, or the land use that's underneath that, which is how the land development regulations dictate the structures, the types, the setbacks, and everything, that seems to be where the rub is.
No. It's 0.85. It's not an acre. You can't put 6 units on it.
Okay, and 0.85 then, and it's a single-family residence, but they're able to use the multifamily land development regulations to be able to do what Mr. Keating had talked about. Now, if this were in a RS3 or an RS6, then they would not be able to do what we're talking about because the yard is different for a single-family resident than it is a multifamily structure.
Well, actually, the same principle would apply.
Okay.
But generally, if this were an RS6 instead of an RM6, it would be a 20-foot instead of a 25-foot setback. So really, the difference would be the the horizontal distance, 20 to 25 feet, but the same principle still comes up. Beyond the setback, can you put a structure in front of the house? And staff's position has always been, and I think the only reasonable way to read it is, you have a buildable area within the setbacks on the lot. Once you meet the setbacks, you can build structures and walls up to 35 feet within that buildable area.
I think part of the concept is, there's some consistency between. It allows for consistency between developments without dictating development design between lots. If someone wants to build their house 35 feet back and a neighbor wants to build it up close to the 25, it allows for that site-specific freedom, but it also allows for consistency in how we look at structures. Even though one might be set back further, we apply the requirements the same.
Okay. Out of everything, I understand where the confusion would be on that, but I think staff is being consistent with their interpretation.
If it states in there, if it's multifamily use, that means you put multifamily, river run. You can put a building in front of the multifamily houses.
Is it use or land use?
Land use. Like it does. The garages, when you come in there, the garages are first. Now, the front yard setback on that piece of property, that's a subdivision, is from those garages forward to the right-of-way.
Right, but I think...
And you cannot put higher than a 4-foot fence on a multifamily development, or else there's another entrance. If there's only one entrance, you can't do it. It states that in the code.
Okay, I think on this one, to keep things moving here, why don't we provide your wording to Commissioner Fleischer, and Commissioner Fleischer, if you would get with staff, and we'll get that ironed out.
Have to bring that through.
And bring that back, but let's go ahead and move on to your next subject.
If I get a little, I'm 80, I'll be 67, I won't make myself 87. I'm getting old on in years, so if I get a little excited once in a while, I don't mean to.
Very well.
This is a picture 9. It just shows the fence stopping at the pin. And the Coquina rock, and this picture is before, this is around the time they did the 2002 survey, which I can't find, and they're saying that we had 26 feet. Well, the pin is there and the Coquina there, and there's a 1-foot rule. You want to explain to me the 1-foot rule, Bob?
I'm not sure what the 1-foot rule is.
It's got to be 12 inches, I think.
They're close to it.
Yeah, or 2 6-inches. Go ahead.
But that clearly shows. That's what.
What is you're disputing the 1-foot rule, and Bob doesn't know what the 1 foot, nor do I, as a matter of fact. Right?
I believe it's 1 foot past. It's 1 foot from that fence in that Coquina in the rock or seawall. That's where your line cutoff is.
I think what he's referring to is not a county requirement, but a state restriction as far as when you build a structure up to the edge of a mean high water line. There's a certain slush of a foot for construction purposes where you can potentially encroach into the sovereign mean high water if it's within the 1 foot.
Where you can or cannot?
You can.
CAN.
That's my basic understanding. I don't know it in specific terms, but I'm generally familiar with that.
Okay. Okay, and then just, if I could, in the backup, we do have letters from St. John's where they did say that Mr. Chestnut originally did have Coquina rock improperly placed in, waterward of the mean high water line. Then he removed the rocks that St. John's staff directed, and now St. John says he's in compliance with their requirements as far as.
That's what they said. Then we had a meeting in my home, the gentleman from Jacksonville, and Andy brought 2 surveys. He brought the old 80 survey, and he brought the one I questioned. He didn't bring the one he built the house with.
Even if let's suppose that you're right on that one. What jurisdiction would we have to enforce that?
Well, I'm showing you how these setbacks get done. I can just keep going. All I want you to do is to see it through my eyes. Whatever your decision is, this is what I'm trying to accomplish.
Okay. Appreciate that, Mr.
I'm
Wells.
not going to get into an argument with Bob.
No,
I disagree.
You're doing fine. I'm not accusing of anything, please.
County, I got answers that you've got copies from 2007, I got answers that Roland gave me, and I got answers that Andy gave me. And two of those answers, both times, 2009 and 2007, the county doesn't see any evidence of shoreline. It sort of states in there, anything, activity on the shoreline. The county states that. One letter from Roland, one Andy from Letty. Here's a picture. Actually, I should do these backwards. I'm going to do these. Yeah, I got this. It's way out of the book. Here's a picture showing. If you look for the 11 years on the 11th picture, the tarp, the sidewalk that was taken out is under that tarp. Does it look like any activities happened on that property? I don't want to dwell on it because it's a long day. This one here shows when I came back across the river from a picnic on the other side of the park. This was June of 2004.
Thank you.
This is when the land changed. This is when the dimensions changed. So when they say that they had this, they didn't have that. They didn't have it until June. And Kenny did go out and walk this. He signed that and crossed his name out. And in the county center, Kenny told me that they were all out there, they knew all about it, and he told them no because he didn't have enough land, and he crossed his name out. That was the one that I showed you before. So this picture here is after the June 5th fill. The two sections of fence were added on 2 weeks after the final inspection. The final inspection was in 2002. It shows the rock pushed out. It's got, if you really look at this real close, there's two sections of dock laying out on top. This doesn't match the first picture I showed you where you saw the coquina and the single fence. This is way different.
Is that bad, Bob?
He can put riprap on the uplands. The reason that we defer to St. John's and DEP is that they have jurisdiction beyond mean high water. So our position is it's up to DEP and St. John's to determine whether there's any violation here. And as you can see, there's the 2007 letter from St. John's that says that after Mr. Chestnut removed the coquina that shouldn't have been there, the rest of his riprap is okay.
And you still dispute that, Mr. Wilson?
I met with St. John's in 2008, one more time. They're very persistent. And Mr. Moore and Karen Strauss and Mr. Giuliani in Bombay, and did what I'm doing right here.
And they said,
I sent pictures to the DEP. I sent pictures to the Army Corps. The Army Corps, Irene Zadowski said, what do you want to do, make them dig it out? Well, they made all of Guthrie dig it out, every bit of it. But I didn't see that. Or it would have been clamped down a lot sooner.
But with your 2008 meeting, they said everything was fine?
No, they're following the county. Whatever the county lead goes, and I'm going to send an email to Mr. Giuliani with Joe's name on it, make Joe CC it, and see what he has to say.
Okay.
Okay, and I think let's throw that into St. John's hands and move forward from this point.
That's been a point of contention, and I believe that, Mr. Wells, you have not been satisfied by any one of staff's suggestions or direction. And I believe that that's the best case scenario, is that you would go to St. John's and have Mr. Giuliani send back that information, because quite frankly, there is no lead to follow for that setback if they have autonomous jurisdiction.
We could tell them to do it, but they...
We can ask...
They don't listen to us.
I did done a lot of reading. I goofed up on the setback, the green space. I said 50. It was. You go back and read it again, it's 40. I had the wrong one. I said I'd make mistakes.
No, I think you've put together a presentation that is just... having a different opinion than staff, and I respect that totally. What I want to make sure is that staff is being consistent, and the consistency is important. I think really that's what you're after, and you're trying to point out discrepancies, and really so far I haven't heard any discrepancies that you've pointed out that the staff hasn't consistently been implementing these ordinances and these policies in the same fashion for everybody else.
Mr. Wells? If you drive down 44th Avenue, there's only one home from lot 11 to lot 1 that don't conform, and that's 8810. And now if you go back in the codes and you read it again, you only allow, except for a subdivision, not even in a multifamily, except for a subdivision like River Run, it says you only allow 2 structures on any residential usage, any residential district. R6 is a residential district multifamily. Any residential district you're allowed, except for a subdivision, you're only allowed 2 structures. There's 4 on that property.
Okay. Well, Mr. Wells, I think, as Commissioner Davis said, it seems staff has been very consistent in their interpretations, and I know it's confusing sometimes between setbacks and yards and stuff, but, I have to go along and agree with Commissioner Davis. I think staff has been consistent here. The one issue you have, if it's with the riprap and whether that's violating mean high water, I think getting with Commissioner Fleischer and sending off a letter or an email to St. John's would be
I'm going to handle that.
the appropriate course of action for
I only have a
that.
few more pictures to go, and then the rest of this stuff you don't have to get involved.
Okay. Okay.
This is the fence added onto. Now look where we're at. 2 sections of fence added on 2 weeks, approximately 2 weeks after the 2002 thing. Now we're getting interesting.
Mr. Wells, does that exist now, today?
No, that's concrete wall. This is the picture when the neighbor was going to do his seawall.
Mr. Wells, could you rotate that the other way? There you go.
Just like you look at it.
Nope. Come back a little bit.
Just like
there you
that's
go.
it.
There you go.
There you go.
This is the picture. That's 244 feet to that pin. So you're going to estimate how many feet from that pin to the end of that wall. That's how that's why I said that the wall is longer than 355 feet. That's where I have another way I did it, but that's here and there. If you take the riprap on 8820, and draw a line across, that's where that 9.5 line was. The building is at the water's edge. And Mr. Fletcher said to me, he says, how do you know that pin is right? Well, when I had my dock done.
I don't follow what you're saying is wrong here.
See the surveyor stake?
Yes, sir.
All the surveys show the building behind the pin. That's the control line. And if you go to 36.
But Bob, again, on a waterfront lot like that, it's not the control line, it's the mean high water line that all the setbacks are based upon, correct?
That's correct. The control line is just a line that the surveyors set up for reference. Because of the fact that the mean high water line does constantly change. And one other thing is, we accept registered land surveyors' surveys. Sure. We have to. We do not go out behind surveyors and replicate their work. We don't do independent surveys. So when a surveyor gives us a survey, whether it's a form board survey, whether it's an as-built survey, whether it's a FEMA elevation certificate with a survey, we accept that because they are licensed, they're registered, and there are sanctions if they don't give us the right information. So we are, despite what the pictures apparently show, we go by the surveys.
And so what your surveyor and your neighbor's surveyor had a difference of opinion in the control line?
My dock surveyor did my dock, and in that dock you get a Google. And if you look at page 36, those red lines, you're all familiar with a rebarb and a yellow cap, and a rebarb and a yellow cap. Then you draw a line from rebarb to rebarb. That's your control line. That's not your property line. On a normal lot, backed up to another lot, that is your property line.
Right.
But not on waterfront property. Waterfront property, they pick a place on the property, they put a rebarb and a cap, and then they have the distance from there to high water, which it changes.
So
if you look at this here, the red line, going from, you'll see the fence is well past that. You'll see that the building roof, it's got a small roof on the ends, but it's got the big height of the building roof. The building roof, the red line goes across. So this picture here, it verifies, this was done in 2006.
And so
verifies that stake is pretty close to being right.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
Mr. Wells,
Go ahead.
in reference to that, now that's the wooden stake. Okay, that's not the rebar. That's not a metal rod.
But there's a rebar right there.
And we can assume that for identification purposes, but by the same token, in the front lot, when you and I both attempted to find the metal bar,
Yeah, it was there 2 weeks ago. It's missing. Yeah.
the metal bar is nowhere near where that wooden stake is.
I haven't found it. I haven't looked where it. I haven't found
And that's what I was suggesting with this. This stick is just placed in the wet sand.
it. No, this stake was surveyed. This survey was done for Mr. Redwine's seawall. This was when he was applicating for seawall. Had another seawall.
But the wooden stake is easily moved. That's as
You said that, but
Yes.
then I turned around and showed you picture 36, and the aerial photo from 2006 shows it the same place as that stake.
Right, but I think we've gone over that. The control line is not the line that delineates the setback. It's the mean high water line.
No, but all the surveys show the building behind the control line. Every survey shows it behind the control line.
Okay, well.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on, because I think we've kind of beat that one to death. Your next issue is your riparian space.
This is my dock.
We're going back to this.
If you see where the survey used to be on my high water mark, it's out here. You see the middle is taken out. When the river was filled, and the last fill job was Wilma. I had softened it up, but I had high land, almost 3 feet high at the shoreline, until Wilma. I had stumps left until Wilma. And I'm going to show you pictures later on, which you had to pick up. Why Wilmer took me out? I mean, the grass went all the way to 510.
Okay, before you go into that, tell me what I'm supposed to be looking for and what.
This is the dock.
And the dock is supposed to be. It's not straight. It's not right. It's not permitted. What?
The dock. I don't know why they made him move the boat originally on it. It was permitted for a 130-foot dock. There's no boat lift, no drop down, but it did. But anyhow, the boat was there. Why did they make him move that one? The one that was supposed to move, I guess, was the one that crossed my line, out on the end, on the new extension. Okay,
and Mr. Wells, in the staff report, staff did agree that it appears that the boat lists were not relocated properly. And on November 13th, we notified DEP staff that they need to revisit the location of those boat lists. So again, we don't have jurisdiction, but we have notified DEP that it appears it's still not in compliance, and therefore DEP will follow up on that.
If you go into read the rules for county about docks, supposed to be administrative approval for all docks. I gave you that. You have that.
Right. But
how do you give them an after-the-fact permit when the boat wasn't moved? The boat, it says 5 feet. Just like it said, you can go 3 feet, but you have to have a variance. You have to have the permit read it that from the DEP. The DEP permit doesn't say 3 feet. It says 5 feet.
Okay.
It says railings. I was told my dock was built, the county don't require railings. You go to the library, the county requires railings, both sides. You set out on the terminal platform so you can access your boats. Both sides. The reason it is the same reason the DEP says, so other boats can't come up there and hurt the seagrass. Now, how do you give them an after-the-fact permit 14 months after I had Andy, the wife and I sat with Andy I think it was the 14th of April, or somewhere within the day to that, 2006. He hasn't got one code enforcement, not one. And the only thing he was charged double for was the one you don't pay taxes on. That was the generator. You still don't have a permit for the tank. How do you give him an after-the-fact permit? Who signed that permit?
Mr. Wellesley, we're usually, if a project or an application is a permittable application, we do allow an after-the-fact permit, but they do pay double as a penalty for not pulling the permit in the first place. If it was a unpermittable activity or application, they would not receive an after-the-fact permit. They can only get an after-the-fact permit if it was a permittable activity, but then they pay double as a fine or penalty for not pulling the permit in the first place.
He did pay double.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
okay.
I've heard this explanation on other occasions. I think we all have been together. I think that Roland has explained it thoroughly. For the record, could Roland DuBois explain that and the discretionary application?
But the docks still don't need code today.
Okay.
As far as the handrails and the after-the-fact permit.
Commissioner Flesch, why don't you get with Mr. Wells and come up with a list of all the things you think are not up to code, be it the propane tank, the generator, the dock, and submit that list with Commissioner Flesch.
No,
generator's okay.
we've already done that.
The pad is okay.
That's why we're here.
You don't have the permit for the tank, the extra tank. There's 2 tanks out there.
Okay. So just, we'll have code enforcement look at the additional propane tank.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Flesch.
I can appreciate that. We have gone back a few months, and we've had many conversations and meetings, as Mr. Wells has pointed out. We still have 11 objections that staff has explained to Mr. Wells, and we've had subsequent meetings with Bob and with Roland and with Andy. Mr. Wells has also met with our building official, and at this point, I don't know how that's going to bring us any closer to a resolve if staff has addressed and explained each and every one of those issues. I believe that Mr. Wells is not content with the way staff has addressed the issue. I've sat in on those meetings, and I believe that staff has done a very thorough job in explanation, and have to yield to their factual analysis, and that's why I wanted to go over just each item, if that's what Mr. Wells wants to do, because staff has already prepared the address. Mr. Wells has a copy of the address, and Mr. Wells is still appealing all of the statements that were made by staff. So, for the record, I would just like Mr. DuBois to go over that last issue, if we could.
Yes, my understanding, again, the county building official, Mr. Buddy Akins, essentially we looked at the Florida enabling statutes and requirements, and essentially Mr. Akins has some discretion on when he applies the double fee or not. He clearly has the authority to issue double fees for after-the-fact permits, but in discussion with Buddy, but not speaking for him, but generally my understanding is if someone is cooperative, he considers it a understandable oversight, or if he has a permit that he didn't follow and he had to apply for a new permit, there's certain discretionary factors where someone's cooperative and as soon as they're notified they comply. He on some occasions does not apply the double fee. On other occasions, if he feels that someone should have known or it's pretty straightforward, that's when he'll apply the double fee. In this case, in researching it, he charged a double fee for a generator that was put in, but he did not charge a double fee for after the fact permits for boat lifts on his dock. I think Mr. Wells' point, Mr. Wells' position, he can explain it for himself, is that he's interpreting it as a black and white after the fact double fee. Talking with the building director, it's not necessarily it's a discretionary item.
We don't, we're good. I don't think we need it.
Okay. We have three things, the first three things plus Bill in the river, mid-April of 2004. Andy said he didn't have a permit for the seawall. Andy said he had a permit for the sidewall. But Andy didn't tell me that it was expired. And Andy didn't do anything about it. And then Andy said, I can't see an extension. Well, Andy's a very capable man. He goes in that computer and he could bring up a DEP thing and print it within 5 minutes. This is the 2004 the package for his permit. Do you see a boat lift on that dock?
But, yeah, Mr. Wells, again, 2004 was 5 years ago. Staff has looked at this thoroughly here in 2009.
It wasn't built in 2006.
Staff's position is that all the permits are appropriate. If there is an issue with the fill in the wetlands, then that's something that St. John's or DEP will look at. We've notified DEP staff that the one boat lift has not been moved. I'm not sure what else the county can do for you at this point. I understand you have some conflicts with the neighbor, but I think staff has done everything we can at this point to try to work with you to resolve them. And I think from staff's point of view, everything is in compliance.
Okay, and then I can go pull a 25 feet back. I'm going to put a 35-foot fence on my property, I guess. I'm just being a wise guy, I guess. Here's the steps.
It's allowed. Okay.
Here's the steps. Now, you see this riprap is approximately, on the south side of the dock, it's approximately 18, 20 feet from the wall. When the original thing was, it was behind the trees, it would be 4 feet high and 4 feet wide. It's grown again. My property damages again, which is going to be handled another way. That started when he started drilling holes to put his canopy up. All those concrete pieces went over the wall. So I guess my property don't mean anything. It's who you are in this county, I guess. So I have to handle it in a different way, so I just want to move on. I want you to see the steps, see the building. The dock, we don't want to overdo it, but here, this doesn't, county permit this dock, but their own codes call for 5, without DEP. Now, DEP can, okay, 25% of that can be dropped down if the DEP puts it in the permit, but it's not in this permit. It's dropped down with a boat lift. County passed it. There it is here. You got about 40%, maybe 42%. Dropped down. 2 boat lifts. County passed it. The boat was supposed to be moved was this one, because it's crossed my line. Theoretically, by coals, that's the DEP uses, you're supposed to be 25 feet off the line. I moved my dock south about 15 feet. I could have helped the guy south of me, but I can't help him now, because I moved over. Just for the heck of it, this is what happened to me. That was, you go out where those poles are, just beyond those poles, that was 3 feet high. And when I bought that lot, there was some pine trees and some of those other berry trees. I killed the berry trees with thing, and I overcut the pine trees. So I want to kill them. So now I cut those other trees, so I know who's behind that stump. My wife doesn't like people walking around the beach and you don't know they're there. So I keep them trimmed, but it's not my property, and I don't want him to, what happened to him, what happened to me, what happened to him. So I just keep them trimmed every year. Right now they're trimmed. But all that grass is gone. That was caused by filling the river. I'm going to show you a couple more. This is the north side. When my dock survey was done, it went back out to 30 feet from the 22 feet. This is why it went out to 30 feet. You see the rocks placed out there? They were picked up. The other side was picked up. When they picked it up, I showed you the belly of my property, in the middle of the property. When they got picked up, my property started coming back. Now he's back out there putting rocks in the concrete, whatever you want to call it, riprap. So now I'm losing the south side. I showed that to Joe. Where I had 35 feet, the seawall is actually 8 feet on the south side from the 35 feet. Because they call that wetlands. That picture with my boat in there, wetlands.
Yeah. Mr. Wells, are you about wrapped up here?
Yes, I'm getting close.
Thank you.
I just want to show you some aerial photos and then we're done. Is that okay?
That'll be fine. Thank you, sir.
You don't need the grass study. See, I'm putting the package together. I'm hoping to meet.
Do we have that aerial in our packet?
I'm looking for the aerials.
Because we could just...
That's the only aerial I have.
Yes, you got aerials?
No, I mean the aerial that you're trying to show us.
The seagrass aerial?
No, it's the aerial showing the... Oh, here, I got one in this other package here. Okay. The red line is the control line. I mean the high water line. The new ones, or they don't have the red line. They have the water. What? They changed it. Even if you go back and print the.
Well, those lines on the property appraiser's website, they're not exact. I mean, even with if you were to do the lot lines, that's an overlay from an aerial. So I've seen firsthand where lot lines and lines on that site are not indicative of true lines.
Well, when you measure that wall, it's going to happen. You're going to see how far those lines are off. Because the wall sits back 26 feet. It's set back. The property on that side is 370.
Okay, Mr. Wells, I think we've beat that horse entirely to death now.
I just want you to look at the dirt going out, and you see what happened to my property. And if you see that, just show you the new aerials. Don't do the water line that way. They do it with the water, and the water is over the fence. That's the new ones. The water's over the fence. That's it.
But we're not looking at a legal description survey.
Mr. Wells, we appreciate the time and effort you've put into this. We will follow up DP staff to make sure they do look at the dock issue. If you have any further unresolved issues, I'd recommend you get with Commissioner Flesher and continue working with him, and we'll try to resolve any outstanding issues. But I think staff has been very clear as far as the original setback and where the pool house is located and the other issues. So I think we're pretty well set there.
Okay.
And with that, we'll go ahead and take a break. We'll come back at 10:48.
Can I say? I've got your county's answers. If the county wants to change any of those answers, you have the 2007 answers, you have the 2000.
Mr. Wells forgot something. I have a book and I'm prepared to add more to it. Well, yeah, that's why I got the flexible model. I'll tell you what, you have to give him his value and that's damage.
Go ahead and call this meeting back to order. That takes us to item 10C, public notice items. Mr. Collins, would you do the honors, please?
Yes, sir. There is a public hearing scheduled for December 15th, next Tuesday, to consider a proposed amendment to the RS6, RT6, and RM6, RM8, and RM10 maximum building coverage regulations of the zoning chapter. And I would also remind you that last week we had a public hearing on the Gifford Community Center Municipal Service Taxing Unit that was continued to the 15th, and I believe Mr. Baird and the Budget Office are bringing back some alternate funding approaches on that at a public hearing as well.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Collins. That moves us to departmental matters, 12A, community development. Approval of a bid award for rehabilitation of 7 homes approved under Hurricane Wilma Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Initiative. Bob, welcome back.
Thank you. This is the acceptance of the bids and the contract awards for the third group of Hurricane Wilma recipients. This is pretty standard. Staff has looked over all the bids and they are acceptable. Actually, the only reason this is not on consent is we need you to acknowledge that there's no conflict of interest.
All right, let's start down here with Commissioner Flesher. Do you have any conflicts? Could you just state for the record?
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis?
No conflicts that I'm aware of.
I have none conflicts. Commissioner Wheeler?
I have none either that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. With that,
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Davis, a second from Commissioner Flesher. Is there any comments on this? Any comment from the public? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Bob. That takes us to I, Public Works. Staff update on the Sector 3 Beach Renourishment Project. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you. Jonathan Gorham, Coastal Resource Manager. In this week's update, we continue to make progress and continue to be on track for a permit issuance for the Sector 3 project in time to construct this season. Since our last update, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service biological opinion has been signed and transmitted. This biological opinion is a prerequisite both for the issuance of the federal permit and also for the state permit application to be considered complete. So it is a major step. Following the receipt of this biological opinion by the Corps of Engineers, the Corps has told us they've completed their statement of findings on the permit application, and the Corps has committed to issuing the Federal Department of the Army permit for the project by the end of December.
When you say Department of Army, that's the Army Corps of Engineers?
Yes, that's the Corps of Engineers permit.
By December, was it?
By the end of December, yes, sir.
And Jonathan, if I could, just while we're going through this, in the outline and the time frames that we had delineated back whenever we first started using this upland source stuff, sand, where are we? Are we ahead of schedule, on schedule, or behind schedule in compared to those time frames?
We are a little bit ahead of the schedule on the federal side and right about on our schedule on the state side of the application.
Great. Okay.
We had a meeting in Tallahassee with DEP, Bureau of Beaches and Coastal Systems staff on December 3rd to confirm their receipt of the biological opinion, discuss the changes we've made to our submittals, and to press them for a similar commitment on a timeline for their permit issuance of the draft permit. The departments, the Bureau Chief, Mike Barnett, up there did indicate that the department will strive to issue the DEP's draft permit also by the end of December. That draft permit will then need to be public noticed, and it becomes the final permit following a public comment period.
Is that a particular individual, or is it a department that will be doing that?
The permit is issued by the Bureau of Beaches and Coastal Systems and signed by Mr. Barnett.
But he doesn't obviously put together the permit. Somebody. So it's more of a department effort to issue the permit, probably, than an individual working a permit through a process.
Yeah, that's correct. The Bureau has a permitting staff, and then each project has a permitting project manager who we've been working pretty closely with.
Okay.
So there's an individual who's responsible for shepherding our permit through the process, but it is a joint effort with a lot of input from a lot of people on the permit.
Okay. And I guess with that being the case, we've asked and tried to confirm that this individual's not going to Vail for Christmas. If we could just kind of looking down the road, it's going to be difficult to get things done through a bureaucracy around the holidays, the closer we get. So.
Yeah, we recognize that in December, if it's not done by the 15th or so, it's not going to get done until the 1st of January. Yeah. So we're working very hard to get them to get that ready so we can have a Christmas present. Okay.
Maybe if the project manager is going to Vail, we should go out there and bird dog him and make sure this gets done.
Exactly, while he's on vacation.
Right.
Exactly.
And in some other activities this past week, you may recall in the beginning of September, we authorized an archaeological and cultural survey to be conducted in the project area. It's a requirement by the State Office of Historic Preservation. And we've gotten that report back now. There were no findings in the report that will impact either the permitting or the scheduling of the process of the project, rather, and we'll be forwarding that report onto the state by Friday. We're also going to be working this week on our temporary construction easements. This is a temporary construction easement package will be mailed by certified mail to every oceanfront homeowner in the property area. That easement is basically requesting permission from those owners for us to place sand on that portion of the beach above mean high water that is their private property. We expect to have all those easement packages assembled and mailed also by the end of this week. And finally, the web page that we created for the project is up and running. There's a direct link to it from the county's homepage, and we're starting to see some hits on it.
Good. Jonathan, I just want to take this minute to again recognize the hard work and diligence that the Fish and Wildlife staff put in to getting the biological opinion issued pretty quickly. I know that was, kind of a good surprise for us. And they have concerns about the resources and the turtles and such, and using a new sand source. I know they had a lot of questions, but that whole office really committed to getting this done in time, and we really greatly appreciate what our local guys did here and moved that pretty quickly. So I just want to publicly acknowledge the hard work those guys did in moving that forward. So, Commissioners, any other questions or comments for Jonathan on the Sector 3?
No, sir.
Seeing none, well, thank you, Jonathan. We'll move forward.
Thank you.
Next is Utility Services, Barber Street, FDOT drainage improvements.
Move staff recommendation.
Second. We have a motion from Commissioner Davis, second Commissioner Flesher. Does staff need to provide anything here? Eric, are you?
For the record, Eric Olson, Director of Utilities. One thing I do want to clarify as part of the project, we have requested of DOT on this for reimbursement. It's sort of a traditional package. This one might be slightly different because it's a stimulus-funded project. We're asking them to do either one of two things, either incorporate it into the project or simply reimburse us. Okay. So by putting shelter in now, we're ahead of the game, but we're hoping to get reimbursed.
Super.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
So we have a motion from Commissioner Davis, second from Commissioner Fleischer for staff recommendation. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously 4-0. Thank you. That brings us to county attorney matters. 13A, request from the county attorney to discuss the court order with the Fellsmere fire hydrants. Will?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday we received the special master's order. The city of Fellsmere has the special master to handle their code enforcement proceedings, and we had contested the constitutionality of their ordinance, which passed through the cost of maintaining hydrants to the county, in that cities can only have ordinances that are consistent with state law, and state law requires the owner of the hydrants to maintain them. The special master did not reach that constitutional question. He simply determined that we had not paid the fees and therefore were in violation of their ordinance. Code enforcement decision must be appealed to the circuit court within 30 days. The proposed order that the special master entered found that we owed approximately $12,500 in unpaid hydrant inspection fees, and they also were proposing to add costs, including consultant studies, attorney's fees, late fees, penalties, that would bring the assessment against the county to approximately $25,000. There's very little involved in processing this appeal, because it is an appeal where the court will review the record below, the exhibits, the arguments, and I feel that if and when the circuit court does address the constitutional issue, we have a very strong argument, and I'd just like your authorization to file that appeal to the circuit court.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Wheeler and a second from Commissioner Fleischer to authorize County Attorney's Office to appeal this to the circuit court. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Davis?
If there's going to be an issue about whether or not we owe I mean, I understand how in your comments that having the outstanding fee or fines or code issue really kept the eye off of the main issue. And if we go forward with an appeal, would it make it cleaner, or would it weaken our position just to pay? If they say we owe it, pay it, and then we come back through, and at least that way we have the single issue for the judge to rule on, and we don't have to worry about this happening again in an appellate court process.
No, I don't think it would help anything to pay right now.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to be paying the same amount one way or the other.
Okay. All right.
Any further discussion? Any comment from the public on this? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously 4-0. Thank you, Will. No matters under commissioner items. That now takes us to special districts and boards. We're now sitting as the Emergency Services District, and we have minutes of September 15 and September 22nd.
So moved for both.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Davis.
Second.
And a second from Commissioner Wheeler. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Brings us to item A3, approval to add 3 LP12 and 2 LP15 cardiac monitors to existing service agreement for Fire Rescue Division from Medtronic Emergency Response Systems.
Move approval. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Fleischer, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any further discussion? John, you need to add anything here, or are you good? You good? Okay. We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you. We now move over to the Solid Waste Disposal District. Approval of minutes of the September 22nd meeting.
Approval. Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Fleischer, second from Commissioner Davis. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Request to use the general fund to cover landfill disposal fees for PACE projects and other illegal dumping projects for fiscal year 2009-2010.
Move staff recommendation.
And I'll second
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Davis and a second from Commissioner Fleischer. Himanshu, do you want to clarify this a little bit?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ansham at the Indian County Solid Waste Disposal District. We did a similar item last year. The funds are being used by the PACE project. Julianne Price is here. And principally want to acknowledge the great work that Julianne's doing to clean up our community. And maybe she can tell you about some of the projects that are going on. And I think there's a house being demolished tomorrow. Again, the funds are being used to cover the landfill disposal fees. And since we can't waive any fees at the landfill, we're requesting the use of the general contingency fund to cover those fees.
Okay. Julianne, go ahead, and I'll get Mr. Johnson in just a minute.
I just wanted to say thank you and how important this has been to the community also. Abandoned homes have been the #1 community identified issue in Gifford. And since April 2009, this year, we've taken down 10 homes, and that's due in a large part to this allocation. So the last home that we demolished with this allocation, there was a loaded gun in it. So it's a pretty serious community identified issue, and this has been a great solution that the community helped to come up with, and very effective. So, and there is a demolition tomorrow on 27th Avenue in Gifford at 8:30 that Fisher and Sons will be donating the labor and equipment, and this landfill fee will be utilized for.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson,
Very good.
good morning, and your name and address, please.
Bob Johnson, Coralwind Subdivision. I don't have any problems with the project, but I do question the moving of funds from the county general fund, which is a taxing district, to another taxing district, and I'm just questioning whether that's a legal move, or could you clarify that, please?
Yeah, what it is that we cannot waive our solid waste fees. And since this is a general government thing for cleaning up a community, we have to use our general government fund. So it's going to pay the fees to the solid waste. That's basically what it is.
Okay. And Joe, will we be sending a check directly to the landfill? Do we send a check to the PACE and then PACE pays?
I think they just bring the invoices in and we just cut the check to the landfill. That's how they just bring them in, and we set up an accounts receivable account when they run it through.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Anyone from the public wish to address this? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. There being no further items before the board, we now stand adjourned.